suffocated, because the higher you went, the less room there was for anything built on lies. That's what happens when you evolve. They can't touch you, not because you're hiding, but because they stayed low while you learned how to fly. Number 5, revenge is linear. Detachment is dimensional. Revenge is simple, predictable. It keeps you locked into the same timeline as the people who wronged you. They hurt you, so you hurt them back. They throw dirt, you throw it harder. It's a back and forth cycle that feels powerful in the moment, but in reality, it traps you in the same emotional neighborhood where the betrayal happened. That's the thing about revenge. It keeps you connected to the pain, the people, and the version of yourself that needed to be detached. Detachment isn't just walking away. It's stepping out of the entire system. It's leaving the game completely. You don't need to outsmart, outtalk, or outfight anyone because you realize the real flex is not needing to play at all. Detachment is dimensional, it's not reactive, it's transformative. It takes you into a space where your peace becomes your shield and your silence becomes a frequency that they can't reach. When you detach, you're not saying, I don't care what happens. You're saying, I care too much about where I'm going to carry what happened with me. You're no longer interested in repeating that in control of your emotions. That's what elevates. Not your ability to get even, but your ability to grow past the version of yourself that you can consist. They want you stuck in the drama, in the story, in the emotional chaos they feel. That's where they feel powerful. But when you detach, you remove the battery from their illusion. You stop feeding the narrative. You don't give them your words, your attention, or your energy. And in that quiet disconnection, you take back every ounce of power they thought they had. Revenge might feel good for a moment, but to detachment builds peace that lasts. It's not just healing, it's evolution. You're not avoiding the fight, you're rising above it. And that elevation isn't weakness, it's mastery. Number 6. They didn't expect you to survive without burning them back. They always expected some kind of retaliation. Not because you're vengeful by nature, but because they knew what they did to you deserved consequences. They were ready for the blowback. They braced for the day you'd finally explode, call them out, drag them, or expose their lives. In some twisted way, they welcomed that because it would have made them feel justified. Like the villain they played was just responding to your fire. What they never expected was your refusal to engage at all.
God has elevated your frequency.
With Hunter's Managed Security Awareness Training, we've taken a new approach to SAT, turning something tedious into something enjoyable, effective, and yes, even easy to manage. Think beyond the compliance checkbox and engage your learners with monthly story-based training rooted in the science of learning, which is proven to help them better internalize and retain what they've learned. Designed by experts to improve your security awareness experience. Give Huntress Managed Security Awareness Training a try. Start your free trial today.
Didn't realize had been haunting you. Not through what you do, but through what you are. This vibration you carry now doesn't reach for attention. It draws
Okay, check this out. We just had a 42-minute meeting, and this AI tool turned it into a shareable doc with actual action items and a timeline in under 30 seconds. All right, let's say your team just wrapped up a meeting. Ideas were flying, everyone was nodding along, and it felt like things were actually getting done fast. But then the follow-up doc hits the slash screen 2 hours later, and it's a complete mess. Half the bunch are missing, tasks aren't clear, and there's no structure. And the worst part, you now have to retranslate the meeting to the rest of the team again. Think about how much time this wastes just trying to re-clarify what's already happened. And for high-alpha teams, you're literally costing them money by doing that. Luckily, there is resolution, and here's how it works. With motion, this new AI motion's generated directly within captures everything, and it instantly generates a clean summary. Key takeaways, action items, and text. Then that summary flows straight to team shareable. Then you send it, no planning, no follow-up scripts, just boom. Now your team can actually use the note because they're instantly accessible, easily organized, and fully into your workflow. And then two, so things like this is one thing to do. You don't want to take a step. If you're still chasing people for meeting notes, you're wasting hours that you'll never need. Not to mention, you're costing your company tons of money. Motion doesn't just take notes, it turns meetings into documentation, all automatic. You can try it today for free, or you can keep formatting bullet points into a Word document like it's 2006. The choice is yours, but what is the correct amount?
survived, but not in the way they hoped. You didn't come out swinging. You didn't gather receipts or wage war. You did something far more dangerous. You healed, quietly, thoroughly, and with no desire to take them with you or even leave a scar. That's what shook them, because survival is one thing. They knew you were strong. But rising without revenge, thriving without theatrics, that's what exposes them without a single word from you. When someone tries to destroy you, you still choose peace. It reflects everything they know. Your calm makes their chaos obvious. Your elevation makes their pettiness undeniable. Your lack of bitterness shines a light on their toxicity. And you didn't even have to tell your side of the story for people to pass through. They underestimated how loud silence can be coming from someone who should have done it. They thought that holding your truth would silence your power. But all it did was amplify your presence. You didn't need to set anything on fire. Your peace made a contrast in therapy. It showed who was really wounded and who did the wounding. They weren't afraid of your anger. They were afraid of your growth. Because when you outgrow people without trying to punish them, it forces them to face themselves. And deep down, they knew you leaving them behind with no mess, no drama, no destruction, just grace, was the kind of punishment their ego would never recover from. Number 7, you weren't quiet. They just couldn't weaponize your calm. They told people you were being passive, that you were scared, that you didn't speak up because you had something to hide. But what they couldn't say out loud, what they feared deep down, was the truth. You were calm because you were done. Not weak, not confused, just done. Your stillness wasn't a pause, it was a boundary. It was you saying, without saying, I no longer engage with chaos disguised as connection. They were used to people reacting, used to the screaming, the defending, the arguments that gave them a platform to twist everything around. But you didn't give them that. You didn't pretend. And that made you dangerous. Because when they can't provoke you, they can't control the story. When they can't drag you into the world, they're left standing in the room. They couldn't handle your peace because it wasn't performative. It wasn't silence out of fear, it was discipline. It was you standing in the middle of a storm with your spirit unshaken, watching them try to stir drama in a space where you'd already removed your energy. That calm made them powerless.
Hi there, it's Dr. Chad Moss, co-founder of Big Food. I'm a firm believer in nutrition-first approach to maintaining lifestyle. That's why we created Big Food. 100 years ago, our ancestors thrived on nutritious food grown in fertile soil and unpolluted water. But thanks to the industrialization of food, our diet is mostly composed of ultra-processed fake foods, and it's taking a toll on our health. Today, our modern diets are void of certain
The
nutrients.
world rarely understands
Because the loud ones always...
They're used to chaos when there is power. They're used to loudness when there is intensity. They expect a man who carries heat to explode, to dominate, to fill space.
If I could find
Pause. They're watching you, maybe not in the way you expect, but make no mistake, you've caught their attention. The industry, the hidden hands, the ones who don't show up in headlines but pull the strings behind them. It started with a glance and unexplained opportunity, a coincidence that felt too perfect, a door that opened just a little too easily. You've got something rare, something they don't just admire, they track. Your voice, your presence, your mind, whether it's your art, your intuition, or your ability to move people without even trying, they've taken note. This isn't paranoia, it's pattern recognition. And the deeper you go, the more the pieces start connecting. The messages, the shadows, the sense that you're not just being seen, you're being studied. This is bigger than fame. It's about influence, power, and potential they can't control. Yet, keep watching. This isn't just your story. It's a warning and a call. There's a monitoring spirit or energy around you. But here's the thing, it's not necessarily negative. The intentions behind this presence aren't evil or harmful. Let me explain through a pathetic dream I had. In this dream, I was at an industry party, and everything you've ever heard about what happens at those kinds of events was happening there. It was wild. Celebrities were present, and though I noticed what was going on, I kept to myself and minded my own business. Toward the end of the night, a female celebrity came over and quietly ushered me out of the party. Just as she did, a masculine figure someone I sensed was high-ranking or powerful was entering. It felt like I wasn't supposed to see him, so I was gently removed from the scene. As I made my way to the car, I was accompanied by a man walking beside me for protection or guidance. When we got to my car, on the driver's side, where another vehicle might normally pull up there, was another man sitting on something, and he was reeling something in, almost like pulling a fishing line on a cable. The man walking me said calmly, "They have a tracker on your car." He told me, "They have a tracker on your car." Now for someone out there, this doesn't necessarily mean a physical tracker, although for some of you, it very well could be. In fact, I'm picking up that a physical tracker might be hidden on the front left side of your vehicle, possibly near the tire area. But for others, this message is more symbolic. You're being watched. You've got eyes on you. Someone is monitoring your movements, keeping tabs on what you're doing. Still, I want to emphasize this isn't coming through as a negative or threatening energy. What I'm picking up is that this monitoring energy could be connected to people in the industry, or for some of you, it may even be tied to a secret society or a private group. There's definitely a strong sense of being observed closely. But when I pulled cards for more clarity, the energy shifted. The Four of Wands came out, pointing to a celebration, possibly something you're about to achieve or a milestone you're about to reach. The Three of Wands followed, suggesting that something is being planned, there's preparation happening behind the scenes, and timing is a key factor here. Then the Ten of Cups and the Six of Pentacles appeared. This is major. Someone out there is about to receive a huge blessing. It could be a windfall of money, a significant opportunity, or something that will help you take care of your family and bring emotional fulfillment. This feels like your dreams finally taking form. Whatever is being planned involves careful strategy. These people or this group are being intentional in how they approach you or present this offer. Interestingly, the Ten of Cups also made me think of the family, not just in the traditional sense, but possibly a symbolic one, like a tight-knit organization or secretive group that operates with a sense of loyalty and structure. It reminded me of the family TV, shout out to them, because I could hear their intro in my mind. All signs point to this group preparing something important for you. You're being watched, yes, but not to harm you. They may be trying to find the right moment to bring something significant into your life. When I hear the family, it suggests a group of people who are deeply loyal to one another. So this definitely feels like some kind of organization, group, or possibly even a secret society. For someone out there, this could very well be tied to the industry. Someone in the industry is watching you. The Seven of Cups appeared alongside the Six of Pentacles,
is about to go off. A realization, an epiphany. There's a lot to uncover. The Page of Swords confirms that eyes are definitely on you. You're being monitored, observed, and studied. Someone, or multiple people, are paying close attention to your actions. This card also indicates that you will be receiving some kind of news or important information soon. It could come directly from these people, or they might send someone on your behalf. Either way, contact is coming. For someone, I'm picking up that your own family may not even be aware of what's happening. The energy is very low-key, very behind the scenes. The Page of Swords showing up again reinforces that this is something significant, something that's been quietly building up. When I pulled another layer of clarification, the Seven of Cups again gave the impression of monitoring spirits, energies scattered across different areas, symbolized by each cup on the card. This tells me there are multiple people watching you from various angles. You're being observed from many directions, and it's intense. Then, the Three of Wands returned, followed by the Moon card. Clear signs that there's something hidden at play here. Something is being kept from you, intentionally. Yet it's also something that is eventually going to come to light. The Moon indicates secrets, illusions, and things working behind the scenes. The fact that this came up again confirms there is a reason you're being watched so closely. Whether it's the industry, higher-ups, or a secret group, this is bigger than it appears. Something is about to be revealed, and it will change everything. You're about to experience a moment of deep enlightenment. The Hanged One confirms this, with a glowing light around his head symbolizing a light bulb moment. Something hidden is about to come to light, revealing plans that have been kept in the shadows. When the Ten of Cups appeared alongside the Queen of Wands, it suggested that your creativity or talent is at the center of this revelation. You may be involved in something artistic, expressive, or spiritual powerful. Then came a powerful series of sevens, Seven of Pentacles, Seven of Wands, and Seven of Cups, pointing to a divine alignment. The 787 sequence is often seen as a sign of divine jackpot energy, a major breakthrough. While some might call it luck, this feels more like divine favor. God's hand is on your life. The Queen of Wands shows you as someone passionate and magnetic, likely drawing all this attention because of your unique gift. For some, you may have even been spiritually or physically protected without fully realizing it. There's something rare about your energy, something others can't ignore. When the Ace of Pentacles came out forcefully, it confirmed that a major divine offer is on its way. This could come in the form of a new job, a massive opportunity, inheritance, or some kind of windfall. It's something you can see, touch, and experience. The Seven of Cups continues to suggest you're multi-talented and possibly being evaluated right now. Someone might even be trying to determine what you're worth, or how much to offer you. With the Page of Swords showing up again, it's clear that you're being watched carefully, likely by people who are strategic and methodical, such as those from a secret organization, industry elites, or higher-ups. They're studying their movements, habits, and potential before making their move. Then, the Strength card came out with the World and Six of Wands, which is a powerful combination suggesting you're about to go viral or receive public recognition. This could literally be the beginning of fame, celebrity status even. In a striking moment, your cards almost dropped but were caught just in time, symbolizing that something huge is about to fall into your lap, almost effortlessly. The Empress appeared right after, paired with the Ten of Cups in the Tower, suggesting an unexpected but abundant blessing, possibly related to family, legacy, or even divine inheritance. The Moon card stopped the reading, emphasizing once more that something is still hidden, waiting to be revealed. The presence of the Two of Swords at the end shows that while you may not fully see it yet, it's already in motion. There's also an ancestral connection, something tied to your spiritual lineage or historical purpose. You're not just being watched, you're being positioned. And when it unfolds, it will all make sense. You are being divinely guided and protected at this time, and your ancestors are actively assisting you on this journey. With the Ten of Cups showing up alongside the Queen of Wands, this points to emotional fulfillment and a sense of purpose connected to confidence, creativity, and passion. The presence of the Ace of Pentacles affirms that a divine gift is being offered to you, something that was always meant to be yours. This is a destined opportunity, written in the stars, and even visible in your astrological chart. It's confirmation that what is truly meant for you can never be taken from you. As Erica Badu once said in an interview, if something is for you, it's already yours. No one else can pay. That line is a timeless saying. What God has blessed, no man can curse. For someone to be gifted, this gift looks like a major financial opportunity, possibly a lucrative offer from a specific industry, particularly in music, entertainment, or another creative field. Queen of Wands suggests you possess magnetic energy, talent, and a unique skill set that people are drawn to. The Moon card and the Three of Wands make evidence to revealed soon, especially regarding a partnership signified by the Two of Cups. This partnership could be romantic or professional, but either way, it involves mutual respect, harmony, and shared goals. The Ace of Pentacles appears twice here, which reinforces that this is not just a fleeting chance, but a stable and meaningful opportunity. You're also showing up in Seven of Cups energy, a sign that you're multi-talented and highly capable, where you may have to choose wisely among several options. Still, the offer that aligns with your purpose is here. Finally, with the King of Wands, Six of Cups, and Eight of Energy showing up near the Ten of Cups, there's also a strong possibility that someone right now is returning closer to the
The story of one day's fighters of our time. So let's talk about the passions of and how it has reshaped our present special. And maybe most important of all, let's find out what it's like to scrap the mouse on and history at the sky. This is the downside. I'm Alex and this is Air. The U.S. Navy just conducted a this hypersonic to China's miles, and it'll be carried by global soldiers as well as the submarine destroyers. And I've been staying on top of the story. One news is an advocated flex mode covered by news out of the heart and soul. Not just stay on top of it, but to see what right here on Ryan, I can see that 24 hours and more U.S. Navy successfully tests sea-based hypersonic launch. And Ryan concerns also around the job test of foreign frequency like other political bodies, factors about ownerships, government affiliations, and much more. And I love to ground things when I compile stories that are sure interesting because of the topics that I'm raising on someone. Government is a big part of my research and my day-to-day research. And it can be just go to ground.news/sins website or just phone to get 20% off iTunes everyone. Again, that's ground.news/sins 20% off in 1980, Rocket still more than a decade later, adding Martin changed history. A young one an aircraft that could have been as an air defense rather than no aircraft had that by 1997, to the sleek curves a new fight that coupled unparalleled performance with this groundbreaking integration technology to allow for a subtle but absolutely violent shift and the way low-wing aircraft were leveraged and recovered. Now, Mike, those are shown an F-15E.
True growth occurs when we are willing to take a step of faith without certainty. It's about trusting God and moving forward despite the uncertainty. To grow, you must push beyond your comfort zone. The fears you avoid become your boundaries. Think of fear as an invitation to evolve, to expand beyond your current limitations. It's a call to explore new possibilities and to grow in ways you haven't yet experienced. The Holy Spirit is most active when you step outside your familiar zone. You need to confront your fears now, rather than postponing them with promises of someday that never seem to materialize. Anything you're hesitant about or reluctant to do often gets deferred indefinitely, but it's essential to act today. God is telling us you won't live forever. This means that we all grow habits at the edge of your comfort zone. I firmly believe that growth always begins where it ends. There's no convincing reality. Every Sunday, I still feel uneasy staying out here, but I push through because health and faith often lie beyond our comfort zones. Many people, driven by fear, easily stay where it's comfortable to avoid stepping out in faith. word, and it helps to seek counsel from fellow believers if you have doubts. But if you find yourself asking, what if it doesn't work? Consider this. What if it does? When I was a teenager at camp, I remember standing at the back of the worship service when Coach Marie told me, boy, when the singing is over, I want you to preach. I was stunned.
So I'll take care of my snotty sofa.
Can do.
Mildewy tile?
Two platform. Need help in this tunnel? Two platform. Shotgun platform.
Right now, well-qualified buyers get zero.
laundry can be really... ugh, especially if it sits in the washer too long. The Fan Fresh option, part of the Fresh Flow vent system, helps keep your clothes fresh. Whirlpool. Everyday care.
Stop putting clogs on the ground. Whoever put the clogs on Agri, it's really bad. Alright, stop. Don't do that again, please. Just put one clog and then put another clog on top of it. Put it in the shape of a number 5 in the site. Watch out, guys. We're all here now. Get out, get out. Problem is, attacking platforms on this map from the north side is a terrible idea.
We're getting a secret tunnel next to the main base. Love it down with them. Take the main.
Yeah, so, okay, meet up at Aggro Lab. I need Oasis to meet up at Aggro Lab. Please. Meet up at Aggro from everybody. This is the only safe spot for Nancy. I agree. You cannot attack platforms, not safe. Meet up in Agri. I'm going back to heal. We're going to attack the middle of the map from Agri.
We're losing lava tunnel now.
From Agri, kill spree, go to the middle. Go to the middle now. Go to the middle now. Go to the middle now. I'll bone shield. Go to the middle. Attack them. Go. I'll bone shield. Go, 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 go. Don't die. Don't die. Don't die. Only safe is only attack is only do aggro. They can pinch us through every other location. Think about it. If you want to attack again. Okay, I'm going in the falls. Go, go. There's many in the falls. No, there's too many in the falls. Whole team's in the falls. Get out, get out. Fill me up. You feel me, you feel me. Okay, the whole team's in the falls. terrible hallway for me. I'm not gonna risk it. I'm not gonna risk my miss. Their whole team's here. I'm not going. Nope. Not risking it. Sorry. Got a gorge here. I'm good.
Phantom power, Bluetooth, and
Nope.
Shop now at sweetwater.com.
This is
Need to do. We need to split the onuses. One of the onuses needs to defend the other. That's how we win. One defend alley, the other defend hit platform. That's the goal. I'm gonna hit platform, the other onus come to alley, or vice versa. Well, perfect timing, and I'm over here. Let's do it. Yep, west route, gate is up. Scratch everything I just said. Now we need to push to the middle, back where I did, where we just were, and it's false. I'll stay here and guard left route. Push gate, go, push gate. Come on, west route. West route, they're pulling into west route. Might be condenser. I'm scared, I'm going back to heel. Could be analysis, check analysis. Oh my god, be so careful, dude.
D is controlled.
I'm here. I'm involved in both here. Kill their back road. Kill their back road. I think we lost it. Okay, let's go. I'm bullshitting. Gotta give us a deal. I'm watching you on the map. I know how good you are. I'm trying to move you guys with your already like you're saying. But, you know, I gotta go back to heal, man. There's no hide here, so there's only so much I can do. I'm on the exo. Exo now, baby! Oh my god, I fucking misclicked on, oh my god, I misclicked through my own nose. I could have easily saved my own nose. I just misclicked on that. Damn it! Fuck! Ah. Son of a bitch. It's alright, well I got an exo. Either way. If I wouldn't have got an exo, I would have been fucking pissed.
What? I told you analysis. No one responded.
All the bombs is one of their main base. Attacking main.
We got it. Go board, kill the high ground. Go board, kill the high ground.
Go, kill the base gate.
Face it down.
Chevy is called the heartbeat of America. Like the people who keep this country moving. For them, only America's most dependable truck will do. In every Chevy truck,
One bite and falls. Big push becoming falls from Bamboo Pest.
West Road, turning into Maine.
The Phoenician Scheme is a hilarious 4-star adventure.
It's a delicious concoction.
You're drunk.
And the funniest movie of the year.
Help yourself to a hand grenade.
The Phoenician Scheme. Rated PG-13. In theaters everywhere June 6th.
Alright guys, we finally got Exos. All we have to do is drop the third hive, and all of a sudden, the turtle is now on its back.
Gates going up in analysis.
Is this like an in the pool party? Can't get in there. I need food. Can't swim while I'm eating. Genius.
Drop platform high,
bites.
fucking A.
The chip will keep you dry. That felt mean and intentional.
You might just want to get the west route tunnel up and then get the platform high. It's something safe like a west route tunnel. I'm not trying to tell you what to do, Tom, but that's always a good option. Got fall tunnel going up, guys. Protect it.
I'm getting a bamboo tunnel.
Bamboo gate down. I'm on the gate, and now it's this gate, and now it's this gate. Fuck the hive, and now it's this gate, stop everything. And now it's this gate, stop everything. Holy shit. I basically just stopped the entire push. By attacking the gate on the top, that's alive. You don't hydro! Hydro, fucker! Wow, I thought I was dead so many fucking times. I was just like, my adrenaline is fucking yeah, we're still alive here. We're not dead.
Flipping the hive.
Oh yeah, I probably a fucking 20 minutes ago, then really good. Oh, nice.
Time to drop. They scan the hive. The hive is scanned. Take the hive, take the hive. Platform, please.
hit the main. I'm hitting the main. Fuck you, fucking Alice, hit the main. Fuck you, fucking Alice, hit the main. I'm going in. I'm stacking my own. I'm on the main off. Main off 60%. Main off 40. Main off 30. Main off 20. Main off 10. Main off down. I did half the work, guys. Now they're scared. They have no way to beat me. I'm fucking scared.
Go in the back platform right there. It's not really up nice.
On WhatsApp, your personal messages, they're yours. We can't see them. Hello? We can't hear them.
I'm bone shielding with the sculpts.